Alright everyone, some days like today it feels like media day because all I can do is talk about how dumb the corporate media is being. Today we've got another funny story here, the Putin congratulations story. Yeah, it's a couple days old, but we get news that apparently Trump's team, that's sort of writing his little ditty to spit out, his talking points memo, so to speak, says, "Don't congratulate Putin, Mr. President, it's a bad idea. Don't congratulate him for winning the Russian election." And he comes out and congratulates Putin because, like, probably in his mind, he's like, well, we're already in a Cold War. I don't want to push things too far. People will blame me. Trump takes the blame if diplomacy goes sour and the Cold War continues to get colder. That's exactly what they want. They want to corner things into a position where we're on a dangerous footing with Russia so they can blame Trump, say he's a warmonger or something. So then when he has to be Big Don and smack the Russians down because, he's the president of the United States and that's his job, they can say, oh, he's going to start a nuclear war. And it'll be them that have caused the problem in the first place. He's the one that wants to normalize diplomacy to some extent. I say to some extent. He's been critical of Russia. He's agreed to sanctions now twice, but apparently he wants to have some degree of normalization to the point where he can at least talk to Putin. Instead, the first time he goes over there, he shakes Putin's hand. You remember, at the time, it was surreal. The corporate media and a bunch of people in the alt media, they're all analyzing how he shakes Putin's hand. And for weeks thereafter, anytime he shook any other dignitary or head of state's hand, it was always, oh, this shows Trump is trying to be dominant, and that show Trump is reluctant to shake this person. It's like all the body language bullshit, basically. Now, the stuff that if you apply it to certain other scenarios, you actually get banned from YouTube. Hint, hint, there were several instances of that, a few weeks ago. But here's the thing. Here's the funny thing. It's totally hypocritical. Because the same people that are saying Trump congratulated Putin because he's a pawn of Putin seem to forget Obama congratulated him in 2012. Now, there wasn't a big difference in the relationship. The relationship between the US and Russia was already sour. And don't bring out this bullshit excuse, well, since then they've stolen our election, so the situation is different. Again, I'm seeing no evidence of that. I'm still seeing no evidence. So far, the evidence of Russian collusion to meddle in the election boils down to about a dozen Russians, the 13 Russian story, bought Facebook ads. They took Kremlin money and bought Facebook ads. They also propped up Bernie Sanders, who, of course, lost. So a 50-50 proposition that didn't even swing any votes during the election. Probably 10 fucking people voted different in the state of Wisconsin. No, didn't flip the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin didn't flip the map in Trump's favor. The election had no significant Russian interference. The interference that did happen is the normal propaganda that we also conducted in their election. We have for a long time. The US and Russia aren't the only countries that do this. The UK does it. The Saudi Arabians do it. Israel does it. China does it. Everybody, Iran does it. All of these countries, if you have an expendable budget and you have some reason to care about the diplomatic state of another sovereign nation, they undergo an election or something, you're going to try to interfere. Of course you will. The US interferes in other countries' business all the time. Look at what we did to Iraq. We didn't have to rig any voting machines. We just blew up all the voting machines, and then replaced them with those that didn't just say, you can vote for Saddam, or here, this check box 1 for Saddam, check box 2 for Saddam Hussein, check box 3 for the dude with a mustache who already runs our country and will kill you if you don't fucking vote for him. Oh, he got 99% of the vote and 1% of the population just died accidentally. Whoops, the big problem. Now here's the thing. The corporate media is totally hypocritical, and 2012 was another thing. There's another connection here. Obama ridiculed Mitt Romney. When Mitt Romney was asked what our main geopolitical foe or main adversary on the world stage was during his, I believe, second debate with Obama in 2012 in that election, he said Russia. And Obama sat there smirking, and when Romney got done very boringly chatting, which is how he talked, he's a fucking boring person. In all honesty, Obama was, more energetic, more interesting to listen to even at his worst moments, which is why he won, in part. Obama says, well, Mitt, it's not, the Cold War's over. Ha ha, you're so outdated. Basically, you're old, outdated, you don't know what you're talking about. Get with the fucking times. It's the era of the internet. It's not the era of Star Wars. And disco's not in fashion anymore, Mitt. Put the coke away. People do other drugs now. That's basically how he reacted to Mitt Romney at the time. And he was right. Russia is not an adversary on the world stage at this point. It doesn't have the power to be an adversary on the world stage. China does. The EU potentially. People are worried about that right now. I'd be more worried about the EU coming under increasing corporatist rule under Merkel and the people in Brussels and becoming an adversary. Absolutely. Not for military reasons, for diplomatic reasons. You have a lot more countries in the EU than Russia. One country with an economy the size of Italy. With what, a third of our population. The only advantage in any possible realm that they have over the United States is more nuclear weapons and bigger nuclear weapons. And Trump tries to take care of that problem, and people say he's trying to start World War III. Oh, we're going to modernize our nukes. Ah! Everyone freaks out. Ah, the Cold War is back. Oh, Trump is such an evil person. He's going to get us nuked. Oh, you know, if Obama had suggested modernizing elements of our nuclear stockpile, didn't they invest in some airdropped nuclear design as well? Some sort of literally airdropped bomb that could be, it's like, that's not necessarily the best tactical response. I think we might need to think outside of the hey, put it on a plane and very slowly fly it over box at some point. You know, Russia and China seem to be. China's modernizing its missiles, Russia's modernizing its missiles and building new styles of nuclear design, it seems. We might return to nuclear testing at some point. There was one joke story where they were like, oh, Trump's going to detonate nuclear weapons again, go back to nuke tests. If he were, the people probably would say that it was because he was a Russian pawn, which is the funniest part. He's going to start a war with Russia while being their pawn. These two things cannot coexist together. Not in the same timeline. You've got one timeline to live in there. We're not in two. You split apart at the subatomic level. Now, the corporate media doesn't know what it's talking about. So essentially, Obama congratulates Putin, and it was lovely, and, you know, Obama's such a good statesman, he's so diplomatic, so approachable, such a normal guy. Sort of like when Joe Biden threatens Trump, he's a normal guy. He's a big, tough, normal guy, really respectable. When Trump responds to that, he's a bully. There's no bias here. When Obama congratulates Putin, it's fine statesmanship. When Trump does it, it's the only reason he could possibly do that is because he's a pawn. Now let me iterate something else. Of course the Russian election was a sham. The main opposition opponent was jailed, I believe, and multiple people probably assassinated by Putin. But again, that has nothing to do with our election being intact or not. It's a totally different situation. Okay, Putin is a strong man. All right, that's granted. There are other strong men in the world that lead states, some of which have larger economies. Look, Merkel's basically a strongman, charismatic dictator of sorts. She does whatever she wants with impunity. The fact that opposition parties have stalled out her hegemonic government hasn't stopped the EU from doing the same shifty stuff it's been doing. China's a literal dictatorship now. Xi will be president till the day he dies. Probably he'll handpick some successor. And it's fallen back into hardline communistic style rhetoric. And it's not communism in an economic sense. Arguably, in some zones of China, it's more capitalistic than the US. Why do you think their economy is growing so quickly? Yeah, but it's definitely totalitarian. As for Russia, yeah, it's not a compelling enough adversary. The USSR was a compelling adversary. Massive, big population, a lot more resources, certainly a large military. Russia's a shadow of the USSR. It's just the shadow of it. That's all it is. It's one of the components of what was formerly an empire. It was an imperialistic move. That's all it is. But people, I think, at this point, because of the decadence in our culture, it's almost good to have a new Cold War in some social ways. No, if it solidifies your culture, when there's an external adversary to worry about, it increases internal cohesion. That's fine from a strategic standpoint. Maybe the eggheads at the Pentagon decided, well, we're going to have to start a new Cold War. Yeah, Russia's not the USSR, but we're going to have to go toe-to-toe with them again because look at our culture. It's being ripped apart by all of the postmodernism. Maybe that's what happened. It's a military strategy, fine. But as far as Trump congratulating Putin, okay, so he should not talk to Putin at all. So the Cold War is of concern. People on the left say he's trying to start a nuclear war. Trump's bad at statesmanship. He's alienating people. So you want him to do that more. How does this make sense? And how do you reconcile that with praising Obama for his statesmanship when he did the same thing? And Obama openly stated that Russia wasn't an adversary. How soon people forget. It wasn't that long ago. We're talking 2012. We're not talking, oh yeah, sometime back in the 1800s. Some politician said something about, you know, the Russian Empire being a potential ally. And it's recent memory, living memory. As in, most people alive today who are adults should remember that episode of Time if they're politically cued in. The thing is, a lot of people talk a lot about politics and know nothing about them. They don't remember, they don't know anything about them. They know literally nothing. People should keep their mouths shut about things that they don't know anything about. That's why there are certain things that I don't weigh in on. I'm not going to make a video on a topic that I don't know anything about. But I can analyze this. Of course I can. Study a little bit of poli-sci when I was at UVM. It's an interesting field. Not all of it, but you get the idea. Trump's doing what's right, which is, hey, you know, we can be kind of competitors, maybe even kind of adversaries or frenemies or something, but I'm still going to call the dude and say, oh, you know, congratulations for winning the election. He did. He didn't say, oh, thank you. Congratulations for winning a fair election. I love you so much. I can't wait to suck you off. That's not what Trump said. He did what a normal president would do. Oh, congrats. You won your election. That's great. Yeah, so in other words, whether the election is fair or not, he's the head of Russia. We still have to be able to talk to the Russians. We still have to be able to conduct some degree of diplomacy with Russia. You can't do that if you just freeze the head of their state out entirely and say, well, you know, fuck you. It was a sham election. By the way, is anyone concerned about him talking to the Saudis? They don't even have elections. No, it's a monarchy. There is no election there. What about Pakistan, one of the most corrupt governments in the world? All these other corrupt governments, some of which are, trust me, far more corrupt than Russia. Trump should you know, go there to follow their conventions. He should bow before the Saudis and do all this other toe-kissing crap. He should go over to the EU, where most of their laws aren't even made at the sovereign level anymore. They're post-nationalistic, imperialistic, I would say. He needs to shake their hand and get along with them and their unelected dictatorial bullshit. But with Russia, no, it's a problem, because the Russians allegedly meddled in our election, which they probably didn't. I'm willing to believe that what little meddling occurred, trust me, every other prior election has had the same low degree of meddling, just like every one of their elections has a little from us. Absolutely. And we get meddling from other people too. In fact, it might cancel itself out. What if the Chinese are like, oh, we want a President Hillary Clinton. This Trump fellow seems off the wall. He's going to hardline us on trade, so we're going to try to get Clinton elected. Nobody's investigating that possibility. That's funny, because back during the 90s, during Clinton's re-election bid, there were all sorts of rumors about Chinese money being in slush funds meted out through third-party corporations to the Clinton campaign. Absolutely. We're talking tens of millions of dollars, potentially. And from the Saudis, too. The Clinton Foundation gets a donation from a country that just then coincidentally benefits from some favorable trade deal. Like Russia. Total coincidence. You know, don't look into it any further. No, uranium one? Nah, we don't need to investigate that. It's a bogus, it's a phony scandal. But then one former FBI agent claims Putin has Trump under his thumb. It must automatically be true. Because our intel agencies are infallible, you know, except for when they ignore the warning signs of someone who's going to go completely apeshit and kill a bunch of people. Or the fact that they routinely violate the Fourth Amendment, or try to violate the First Amendment whenever possible. Or that they have a political bias and that they provably do meddle in the elections and create insurance policies to make sure that they can control whoever's been elected. Yeah, there's no deep state either. That's just a conspiracy theory, everyone. That's about all. Peace out.